it was a high-risk environment that you're growing up in and learning. So you learn about your sex education, but like I didn't even have that in school. So the state didn't educate me. So who educated me? Stranger educated me. I'm 14. Would you trust your kid with 14 to a stranger?
No. Perpetrators are now labelling certain behaviours like...
Doing maps. Minor attracted person.
Piss off.
That's so bad. The chemsex world, which is like... You're talking about
Chemsex world.
Chemsex, so like...
I need some education.
Yeah, okay, so chemsex, so this is...
Hi and welcome to the Paradox of Change. From digital chaos to workplace welfare, modern men are lost in a minefield of mental health challenges at the moment. We're joined by fellow therapist Richard Whitenstall to expose the truth about male vulnerability, workplace bullying and our tech-obsessed world. Today, we're going to cover the survival of modern man. And I kick off by asking Rich how men are coping.
They're not coping. Yeah, completely. Like I've seen it from the increase in clients that I've had. I get quite a lot of male clients, and across the board, whether they're in relationships, whether they're on their own, whether it's straight, whether it's gay, and everything in between, there's a similar sort of pattern of like basics being in tune with what you're feeling, understanding about boundaries, all that just gone. It's almost like you're just left feral. They're not being equipped. That's what it feels like. They're not being equipped to deal with things, with life, hardships, opening up and sharing things. They're lost. They're just lost. They're just really lost. That's what I'm noticing. They're just really lost. And it's a shame because a lot of them, you can tell, they're quite sweet. They don't mean anything malicious. They're just lost. You know what I mean? Like SOS, somebody please help me. You know,
please give me a guiding light.
Please give me a guiding light. And how much at risk. You know, like I have a couple of clients who are autistic, and how simple things can make a big difference to them. But like, there's a level of vulnerability as well that I notice, in that, you know, if they end up with the wrong person, if they end up with a narcissist,
it's a match made in heaven, isn't it?
Awful. And it just.
So you and I actually went to level 2 at the same time, which we were just talking about. I was thinking about my exposure to men and early clients working then. So you've seen over a course of time that shift and that change. What do you think you saw in men that were struggling before to how they struggle today? What's kind of that contrast?
There's a lot less social support. There's a lot less meaningful connections, I think, overall, with their families and with their friends. It's just not the same.
What do you think that is? I mean, I've got my hunch.
I just think they're not taught it. They're not taught how to, like, healthy things. You know, like, we've got this new generational bit of people being more in tune with their feelings and emotions and expressing them. Whereas before you didn't have that. It was like, put up, push it up, boys don't cry, that sort of bollocks.
But that still exists though, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It does still exist.
But I would say the older generation are the ones that have that suck it up mentality. But you're saying that guys today just don't seem to have a network, a safety network.
Safety network, or understand that they can put in boundaries. It's almost like it's completely gone the other way, where there's no...
Why is that?
No idea. Won't talk to others. Can't talk about other things. I've had a number of ones that when they started talking about being in therapy to some of their closer friends, 4 or 5 of the people in the group also in therapy, and it was like a big moment that they shared and could be a bit more vulnerable with each other.
I'm just trying to unpick when you said feral.
Yeah.
There's something in that where I'm thinking...
Left to their own devices. Nobody is guiding them. Nobody is sort of showing them, like, this is how you deal with it. This is how you... Because we've rebelled completely against the suck it up thing, so that whole thing has been rejected.
Yeah.
But where's the structure? Another component is the fact that online world has come into the mix halfway along it. And I remember before the internet and then after the internet. So there was like this whole different dynamic. But now you've got, when they say it takes a village, the village was like the immediate surroundings, the people around you, your friends. With the internet, the village is much bigger.
You'd argue it's not a real village.
It's not a real village, but their concepts and their thoughts are very broad and very extreme at times. And people in that village that would never normally get access to that information, or them sort of people or those sort of views, now can hear it. What do they do with that?
So you're kind of saying that then helps create divide?
Yeah. Well, there's no sort of, there's no structure to it, and you've got all these voices. And
you're describing almost chaos.
Yeah, it is chaos.
So we've got lost men at the moment in a social world that don't have close connection.
There's been a backlash against white men, against, like sexism, or like understandably, rightfully so. There's certain elements that need to change, but you've had a whole the people who that message is for may or may not take it on board. You've got this whole group of guys who are getting hit with it, and it's not the message. They wouldn't have been
exposed to.
Yeah, they wouldn't be doing those sort of things in the first place. You'd have been like, I don't believe that the message, anti-sexism and all that stuff would have been for them.
So they're almost being
told what not to be.
Told what? Yeah. So they're almost being reprimanded and punished for things that they've not done but generations before have.
Correct.
So it's preempting an attitude and then punishing them anyway.
Yeah.
That's not really the therapy model, is it?
No, absolutely not. But it's just like, it leaves a lot of people confused, a lot of people unsure what to say. Who do I confide in?
And what am I allowed to say?
Yeah.
I was in my son's school having a chat about a particular lesson that's going to be provided over the next 3-4 years. And there is a whole term devoted to misogyny. For 15-year-old boys, they're going to be taught what misogyny is.
Right.
You just said, I don't know, where's this void come from?
Yeah.
I've just connected the dots as we're talking. We're teaching this in schools. Mm-hmm. If I am a young man and I've got masculine traits, which if we're taught that they are inherently bad, then why should we talk? We're immediately shamed. So you're seeing that now. So you're talking about that, the people that you are seeing, the men that you're seeing, they are that generation.
Yeah. There's a big, and that's, but who steps into that? Because you're looking for, people don't want to be, I am a strong believer, a lot of people don't want to be wrong or do bad or whatever. I assume that some people do, and that's fine, outliers, whatever. But I don't believe strongly that if somebody was given a choice that you'd deliberately do something awful. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So where's the people just saying, this is what you have to do to follow? This is what you have to be like? I remember being taught by my dad or my grandparents about just manners, getting on off buses, that giving up your seat and that sort of thing, just general nice
traditional values.
What that didn't hurt anybody. It was a kindness, and that's the thing I just don't understand. I understand that's what I should go to, or if you're walking along the road, you make sure that the person that you're walking with, they're inside and you're against the road. You know what I mean? So it's just simple things like that where it's just
you're describing kindness. Common decency.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not what men can fall back on as a safety net. And it's those innately moral masculine traits that men need as a bit of a guide, a path, a bit of a guiding light.
It just seems really difficult. I'm just they're not being equipped. That's what it feels like. They're not being equipped to deal with things, with life, hardships, opening up and sharing things, which I think is a massive disservice.
And so that's what you're seeing more of with men in general. What about the gay community? What are you seeing? Are there any differences, or is that similar?
it's strange because I think there's always that bit with the example that comes to mind is the thing around sports. Sports at school, a lot of gay people. It's a stereotype for a reason. They're, like not good at sports or whatever. But I think what some people have come to realize is you're not feeling comfortable with yourself, let alone being able to focus on the thing itself.
Are you talking identity?
Yeah. So like, can you imagine? It's like having an extra layer to get through to actually do the job that you want to do. So rather than just go to work, I have to think about, okay, what am I wearing? Is it going to create a reaction for people in the street as I get to work? Is it going to create a reaction from somebody who I work with? Are they going to presume something else about me because I'm the way I talk, so all I think more than just get up, get to work, get there, do the job. There's all these other things that slot in the way.
You're describing someone with low self-esteem. I feel judged. I don't value me. I need to not impress. I need to, what's the word I'm thinking of? Fit in. I need to be accepted.
But it's based on safety because I grew up in the 90s, which is a very different environment to kids growing up now.
I know.
You know what I mean? I mean, so different. I remember, so like in the Northeast in the 90s, and it was very much like rewind the whole thing back. You know, the idea of there was no inspiration to, when you get older, you can meet somebody, you can buy a house, you can have this kind of life. There was no dream there. You might get older, you might meet somebody. The end. But you're at the mercy of everybody else's our cultures.
I mean, we are dividing, aren't we? We're diversifying as far as just basic mating strategy. I see men getting less and less equipped and less brave, less and less masculine because they're being barked at from so many different avenues. And we just talked about the school thing as an example. That's connected with me. And then perhaps more single parent households. It's taking away that masculine input.
Yeah, I mean it can be, but then again it could be granddad. It could be the gym teacher. It could be the maths teacher. I think it doesn't. I think there's that bit.
That's that whole village, isn't it, that you were talking about?
But then if they've all been told you can't have an input in that kid's life, you have to take a step back. This is it's all this pushing away.
We kind of need that community back, don't we?
Yeah.
Real community without a mobile phone.
Yes. They call it. So I read a paper recently about digital intrusion.
Ooh.
And it was about the whole thing about working from home after the whole epidemic, and everybody pushed back. And I remember I was really resistant reading it because I was like, no, it's more like, I like the idea of being given that option to work from home rather than have to be in there, because it didn't make sense to me that having to be in the office and all the rest of it. And, but it said about how we become hypervigilant to notifications, to things. There's that thing, and because now you get more and more connected, your email, your Teams message, virtual thing, you don't have to be in person, you can do it virtually. The connection and how much you're attached, it's got more and more and more. You can think about when you were at school, bullying used to just be when you were at school. In between the hours of thingy to 3 o'clock, that was it. Once you got past that, you were fine. But now, because you're connected in, 24/7, you can have whatever experience you're having 24/7. You don't get off.
It reminded me of something I heard a little while ago. A family, as soon as you get home, the phones go off. Everyone goes around the kitchen table for dinner. We're not getting a break then, are we?
But that's why things like workplace bullying hit so hard as well, because I did part of my dissertation was about that, and all situations, if it starts, quit your job, because there's no outcome that allows you to move past it and be productive. It always ends with that person who's bullying you leaving, you leaving, being dismissed, or being on the sick. None of it is productive. Even if unions are involved, even if you fight your case, you are tainted. It will be harder. Quit. As soon as it starts, quit.
I love that.
Quit.
How many people stick at their job because they feel they're stuck, and they don't have options, they feel trapped?
Yeah. In this research bit that I did, there was this one person was like, had like requirements at work because they had like cluster headaches.
Right.
So
not surprised being bullied.
Yeah. But the manager was a major employer, and the person who knew about that would constantly put them at the window so it would trigger it, and then they would go on the sick, and then they would report them for being sick. So they get like, so it was almost like this never-ending cycle of rubbish that they're going through.
I heard a study that 1 in 6 are narcissistic, and that sounds like one of those 6.
Yeah.
Unethical on every level.
But there's no.
I guess there's no proof either, is there? It's just from what the person was experiencing, saying, my hunch is, and now I bloody know it, but I can't prove it.
But if that was happening outside of a workplace environment, we have names for that. We have bullying, stalking, harassment.
Yeah.
There's charges attached to that. But in the corporate world, there's none. They just look for the weakest one in the head. Bang. We think about the ones who rise to the top are quite psychopathic, aren't they? But who do you give the responsibility for all the policies? Psychopaths. Do we wonder why we're in a mess?
Yeah. So Lottie, myself, and James Penny, another therapist, you know James, we went to see the psychology of a psychopath in Guildford this year, and I went to another one in Southampton the year before. Dr. Laleef, I think he now works for the Conservatives. He's changed his career a little, and he did a 2-hour talk on the psychology of a psychopath. In short, my key takeaways were 1 in 100 people are psychopathic, and then there's different facets of psychopathy, where you can have a functioning psychopath, and then you can have the ones that like to chop people up and put them in the freezer.
Yeah.
But you are 100% right. Someone with that, I can do no wrong, no empathy, no remorse, can lead business, and the business will be ruthless. And like you say, they're going to be individuals that think they are absolutely superb at their job because of the figures, without any consequence whatsoever about the people that they're affecting.
And they set the agenda for the working conditions. What's acceptable, what's not.
As long as it suits me.
As it suits me,
all I want is an unfair advantage.
But there's a mass, like, I would say there's a mass epidemic of bad managers out there. It's an epidemic. Because even when it looks like, there was a study showing that when something's going wrong, all the good people and the transferable people will leave first. So all that leaves left is the rot. And then who gets promoted?
The rot.
So it's a never-ending cycle.
So this was your research project?
That was part of my dissertation that I did about workplace bullying and like how it affects it. And I had, I did a little bit of a study, but reading all these papers around it, it was just fascinating of how much is out there. I mean, there was one that showed, this is way back in the 90s, one paper was saying how it was noticing it was becoming a problem. So they put on all these conferences around it to try and help all the HR people. And they were fully booked, so much so they had to put 3 on. And then as it was getting closer to it, all of the tons of cancellations because the companies didn't want that sort of thing showing up on their paperwork.
Oh,
so
that's ownership, yeah.
Saving face. So I don't know what it is about this whole idea about saving face, if we've got a problem. We don't have workplace bullying. It doesn't happen in here. But
here's the proof.
See, we don't have policies like that.
Yeah, they needed to leave anyway.
Yeah.
All compassion.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit too hard for them.
Yeah. So you made it hard.
Yeah, but how many times have you seen people be promoted, or then you're like, how do they get promoted? What's that about? It's never with like, I've never seen people who are efficient or like dynamic with problem solving and think, oh my God, this is amazing. This person takes the ideas and runs with it. All I've ever seen, and I've worked in many different places, all I've ever seen is like capped. You have a core group of about maybe like 10 or 12 people who keeps the entire thing running, and everything else just sucks off it.
Sounds like it was a impactful research.
Yeah.
And it's not changing, it's not getting better.
It's getting worse.
It's getting worse.
You just think about it, the more and more this happens, We get, and stuff like governments, agencies, all that sort of stuff, it all gets backed up. When you have the management change over, you just keep changing the person at the top, not anything else in the, you need to be all fired, all, I've watched, this, I could talk about this for ages.
Go ahead.
There was one guy who ran this, it was attached to a university, and it was meant to sell university courses overseas.
Okay.
This is back 2000 and something. And this is in Scotland, and the guy was running it. He was selling it on behalf of a couple of different universities, although he'd only signed the deal with one or two. He was selling courses he hadn't even signed a deal with some of the universities for, that he didn't have permission for, didn't have licenses for. The whole thing took a massive dive. He took in £6 million worth of taxpayers' money lost, because it was attached to this university with a spin-out thing to try and promote it all.
And what were the consequences?
The whole thing went bust. Some people got transferred out to paid across the partners that they work for. A lot of people lost their jobs. And I thought, this must be him done. 6 months later, did exactly the same thing with the tech group. I'm like, he should be on a banned list. The people like that is like, there's no consequences. There's just dangerous actors all the time.
It's interesting because there was a thought that when you might look on LinkedIn 10 years ago, someone's been in a job for a long time.
Yeah.
They must be dependable, they've learnt their craft, and if they decide that after 8-10 years they might like to change their career, it wasn't frowned on.
Yeah.
But it was frowned on if you'd hopped from one job to the other. Go and look at LinkedIn now. You're lucky to get someone that's done 6 to 18 months, and that isn't frowned on anymore. But it then promotes the behaviour that you've just been describing.
Yeah. But then there's also that bit of like, we've been taught now that you don't have any perks. There's no loyalty to staff, but they expect loyalty still, even though they don't provide it. And then for you to get a promotion or money, you have to transfer out to get it. Because there's one person who I worked alongside, amazing at their job, operated in a second language, right, first of all, and was knocking it out of the park, knew all the technical hacks to get around the system that didn't work properly, nailed it, was denied 6 times about being moved up to team, like, this was for an assistant team leader job. They said, no, you're not ready, They went and interviewed somewhere else outside the organisation and got a team leader job like that, in charge of 16 people. What is wrong with councils and things like that? They don't understand. Like, that's what I mean. Like, how can another company understand that this person's got value, but this one can't?
I think you're describing, if I pick through that, is like hires like, which then bolsters what you've already said about they just bubble up to the surface.
Yeah.
I guess anyone with loyalty or compassion might be frowned on in this day and age, right?
Yeah, I've just the way some people, if they were promoted at the same time, they work well together, could knock things out the park, and just you've got people just constantly shutting it down for whatever reason.
So, do you see that kind of demographic coming to you for help as well, from a therapeutic perspective?
I've seen a lot of workplace things that come up. I've had a few of them. That's really sad to see, because I'm just like, in the back of my head, I just want to say, quit, just quit, get out. But you can't say that. I just sort of say, what do they think's possible? But that's my 100%. I would say, just quit, get out.
I guess that's in the context of therapy, and you're a therapist, I kind of get that. We have to stay true to our modality. What is your modality? Gestalt.
Yeah.
So there is always going to be that conflict of how much you share of your own thoughts, and it must be difficult, knowing what you know, to try and hold yourself accountable in those situations. Go, I've just got to try and... Yeah. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Trust the process.
Yes, trust the process. Yeah.
So what kind of work keeps you busy in a therapeutic perspective? I know we're talking about men specifically, but what's your biggest demographic, and what do you see as a common thread?
It tends to go in little waves. So like there'll be like a little cluster of them coming up at the same time. There was a lot around guys and pornography for a while, like in getting into relationships, getting out of relationships, not feeling satisfaction, and not performance issues, tons of performance issues, and like all this anxiety around that, and panic, a lot of blind panic, and because lots of people in isolation, lots of guys in isolation.
It's sad when you're saying this because I see the same thing. We've got lost men.
And the same thing, I think, with the danger in the gay world is if there's a crossover with the pornography, but also with the hookup culture. And I'll only speak from my own experience, it was a high risk environment that you're growing up in and learning. Mm-hmm. So you learn about your sex education in the hands of strangers.
Which is what I'm trying to take my son out of class for, so we can do it at home.
But like, I didn't even have that in school. So the state didn't educate me.
Home didn't
educate me. So who educated me? Stranger.
Yeah.
Stranger educated me. From 14. Would you trust your kid at 14 to a stranger?
No.
So this is what I mean, is you're learning in high risk environments. So from cruising to like all them different avenues, totally high risk, and you have to become. I was comfortable. Well, I didn't have to you had to get comfortable with that risk, and the high risk, and there's a high chance that things can go wrong. So you've got that already as a starting point, and then access into that. You've got lots of shame, self-loathing. There can be clashes against their religious upbringing. I've experienced a lot of clients who've brought that, trapped within their religious upbringing. They're very conflicted between like being, am I a good person versus this is what I'm into. How do I know this is who I am? I've been taught this has been evil, and you can just see the conflict. It's really traumatizing for them.
It's anxiety on steroids, isn't it?
Yeah. So then you got that. So the hookup world, which is only a stone's throw away from the chemsex world, which is like you're talking about
chemsex world.
Chemsex, so like
I need some education.
Yeah. Okay. So chemsex. So this is casual sex, the same like as a hookup thing, but it's a subsection which is really extreme hard drugs. Yeah. So you're talking about crystal meth, you're talking about GHB, you're talking about methadone, some really strong drugs. So it's not like a little bit of weed or a little bit of booze or whatever. It's something that's low level. It's something that's high level.
It sounds extreme.
Yeah. Like the G is liquid form. So if you were drinking it, and you're talking about if it measures off slightly, it can make you pass out, or it could put you in a coma. And we're talking mils. So somebody who's high is going to measure out 1 to 2 mils in a drink.
Good luck with that.
Give it to you. Yeah. Based on measures drop as people with crystal meth smoking it, or which leads to injecting it can do. But these are all things because they're loosening the inhibitions completely. So it's like operating with all the warning labels taken off, everything.
Desperate for connection
in this whole world that is kind of like it's
an escapism had just popped up for me then.
Yeah, total escapism. But it's a very dangerous world, and it's just getting lost and lost and lost. You get lost of these lads who are just completely lost in it.
So there are young gay men who are still stuck in the stigmatism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wrote down a little fact.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people know this, but homosexuality was decriminalised in Ireland in 1993. That's not that long ago. You and I were born in the I was born in the 70s, but we were dragged up in the 90s.
In the 90s, yeah, dragged up in the 90s.
Like me, for it was late 80s, early 90s, but the thought homosexuality was decriminalised in 1993 is a bit of a wake-up call that we've come a long way very quickly. And you're right, with religion, if you're brought up in a highly religious, I've got all the time in the world for religion. There are so many values that I wish we could re-inject into society. Yeah. So I'm just not religious or religious yet, or whatever that might be. But you can imagine if you're being dictated from certain scripture, growing up, your mind is so plastic, it just absorbs all the sin and the ways you can and can't behave.
Again, it goes back to that thing of, nobody wants to do something bad. Majority of people, we're not designed to it's about connecting and about being belonging as a big part of it. So
we still have that, don't we?
yeah. So, but then it's that bit of like, well, I'm trying to do everything that's right, but why am I still having these sensations? Why am I still feeling this thing? And
of course, it's not fixing anything.
No. And it's very. Again, I'm the same as you. I'm not against religion at all, because I think faith and having a belief is a helpful thing when you're trying to work through something, process it through something. But I think when it starts to hinder that person in being able to accept themselves and be part of themselves.
And I guess you're also describing potentially something we can use as an anchor, which is healthy, versus the flip side to the coin when it becomes sinister, oppressive. But that, I guess we are seeing that in society today. We all instinctively know what good, healthy, core values, most of us do know what those values are, but we might be, through mobile phones or whatever, we're being infiltrated, and there's no, like you said, there's no escapism.
None. You're stuck. And it's also that constant reminder of where you should be. That should statement, I hate that.
I have an agreement in our client work so a client said, there's not very many banned words in here, but should is one of them. Mm-hmm. I'll be picking up on that because no one should do anything. Yeah. And then you watch clients go, well, I should. Oh.
About times
light bulb moment.
Because where's that come from? Because it's normally somebody parental or societal or whatever, and it's like, and how long have you lived with that? How long has it been? Like, have you seen other people or families around you, or who have you grown up with where that's been true? It's a true statement. It's mental.
I was just thinking, as you were saying there, when we were young, we had the opportunity to walk around a corner to a friend's house. You'd meet up in a group, you'd go to the park, wherever the bikes were outside on the lawn, that's where everyone was. That's been lost.
Completely.
So we're losing out on, and I'm winging it here, so you might need to help me. We're losing out on a confrontation. We're losing out on how to create friendships because we've got so much, infiltration of media of the dizzying heights of what it's meant to be or how to get there. And I don't think that's realistic.
It's not realistic, but it also reminds me of when I worked in, it was around child exploitation, that sort of thing. And I had noticed that, I read a little bit and I noticed a little bit about the distance people were leaving their homes to get the real life experience. So like what you were saying, we could, our parents would be allowed to roam forever, fields away, whatever. And then for us, it would be a little bit less, maybe like the neighborhood or the odd fold or whatever. You'd see the, you then become realized like, oh, I'm going to keep away from that person because they're a little bit, they look a bit funny, a little bit dodgy. You pick up on that sensation.
Well, it's learned judgments.
Learned judgments. So you pick up on all these things of like, keep away from the dodgy guy. But now, this generation, they've been told that all that's safe is in their own homes. So you're thinking, okay, I feel safe now, so I'm safe. I'm now going to...
Great, you're now ill-equipped to go out.
But I feel safe, so everything I see, I can't judge it in real life because I'm judging it because I already feel safe. So that's why you log on to something and you've got somebody on the other side of the world or whoever it is chatting away to you, telling you all these things where if you'd met them in real life, you'd be like, oh, this guy's weird. I'm out of here. But now you're like, oh, I feel comfortable, bubbly and safe. So you've got these conflicting messages. And
I guess the feelings are betraying us in some way, shape or form. And that's happening on a global basis.
Yeah. We were told about the different ways in which perpetrators would target young people. And this was like over 10 years ago. And I remember being in the train and thinking, this stuff is already out of date because whatever the people on the other side of the fence are doing now, the perpetrators, they've already advanced it.
They've already advanced dark web. They've already moved to the next level. They're infiltrating kids now on Roblox.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's like, then we were told that wherever there's kids, that's where you got perpetrators. 100%. Even down to Xbox, you'd have that guy who's playing alongside you but doesn't say anything, but you and your mates are talking about where you're going to be the weekend or whatever. Now that person knows where you are.
Not only are we being infiltrated via this screen that can live in our pocket or Xbox, PlayStation, you've got tweaks to the more sinister side where perpetrators are now labelling certain behaviours like minor attraction, that's a paedophile.
Doing maps. Minor attracted person, piss off. That's so bad.
And it seems to be connected to this woke culture that has infiltrated government, schools, NHS, and I think the majority of family-driven values and people and communities know that there's something wrong, but they might not be brave enough to say so.
Yeah.
It kind of highlights the education that we need, the broader education.
Yeah.
Stop living in your phone.
Or help or teach critical thinking.
Oh, I love that. So Socratic questioning and critical thinking.
Yeah. Like what is it about this? Like we're always strangers at first, but then what makes that person be more intimate? Like I talk to my clients about, you can test something out by talking about something that's really important to you and seeing what the other person does with it.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't care, they don't ask you any questions, even though you said it's important to you. You could use a pet.
Give me an example.
Like, I've just got a new dog. It's my world. Blah blah blah.
I hate dogs.
I know where you stand. Okay. I know where you stand.
No, but I'm messing about.
Yeah. But like, if that person was like, then talk to you, I'm a bit scared of dogs, whatever, and then they talk about it, they're going to ask you questions about it because it's something that you've identified as important to you. So if they have no interest in that, that's already telling you what they're going to do with anything that's of importance. So do you really want to foster and spend more time with that person?
And you mentioned something really profound about, not having a real connection with someone that might be the other side of the world.
Yeah.
By having real friendships and getting out into the real world and leaving the sanctity of your home, you can often detect a lot by people by how they treat themselves. How they treat themselves is how they're going to treat you. Yeah. And you need time with people to figure out their personality traits and their core values. If you can see them being a bit similar to somebody else, they're going to do it to you. Yeah. But we don't get the opportunity. That's lost in social media.
True, but nobody's also teaching like what's unacceptable in relationships. Like nobody's telling you about like the amount of people that have to deal with narcissistic people and trying to get away from that in explaining.
1 in 6.
1 in 6. That's not talking. You don't have to call it narcissistic because I imagine that everybody would be narcissist then. But like
anyone that's been dumped has been
dumped by a narcissist. Oh my god! But like if you talked about the key bits behind it, then you'd be like, oh well, that rings true. Or I understand a bit more how to deal with that person now.
And we talked about it just before we started the show. I was saying, what would be a really good thing is to have level 2 in all schools.
Correct. Yeah.
Because that arms you with sort of empathy, congruence, unconditional positive regard, and accountability. Yeah. And you can then set the stage about the conversations that you can have with people, and you can ascertain better about what that relationship might mean.
And also knowing the difference between a good acting in good faith and acting in bad faith.
How genuine.
Because I think that's where that's essentially what a narcissist is doing, is acting in bad faith.
I don't know this, by the way. I'd have to do some research, but there's something like 5 or 6 key narcissistic traits. And the 2 major contributors are the narcissist, the overt, and then there's the covert narcissist, much, much, much harder to detect because they're the victim. Yeah. So the external validation is, again, much easier to detect when you meet people. But I guess when you're in a relationship, it's much harder to detect because you're trying to please them, which is exactly what the narcissist was. They're drawing that from you to feel their safety.
They are, but then also like, do they ever take accountability?
No.
If it's like Teflon, then leave.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I heard 2 things about narcissists a little while ago. It's really easy to deal with a narcissist. Don't.
Don't, exactly, don't.
And the other one was, we all know a narcissist. They've got the condition, you've got the symptoms.
Yeah, that is so true, yeah. But I've seen people being turned inside out over it, really upset, distraught, or a complete mess. And when you start unpicking it and started helping them understand what's happening to them, I just think, God, why isn't there... When they understood the explanation a bit more, and then they went back and saw it all, they were like, why isn't this taught?
You're making a really good point. I'd like to add to that.
Yeah.
Not only is it, why isn't it taught,
Yeah.
but whether narcissism is genetic
Yeah.
or a coping strategy from a really poor upbringing,
Yeah.
my hunch is the majority. It's only a hunch. Comments in
Yeah.
below. You can
Cancelled.
My hunch is they're engineered from family settings, maybe a narcissistic parent or neglectful environment growing up. So this might be a bit controversial. Should we not have a little bit more compassion for the narcissist who needs so much external validation? And it's a bit like sexuality, it's a sliding scale. And so I wonder what we could be doing more to help individuals that are showing narcissistic traits. Because it's not a knife edge divide, is it? That person is narcissistic. So everything they say and do, and how they are and how they behave, is negative.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of throwing that out there as a concept to sort of sit with. If you had a really tough upbringing, maybe you're a vulnerable narcissist.
Yeah.
There is an opportunity to help them. But to your point, if that was taught at schools, you've got a chance of not infiltrating. What am I trying to say? Getting in intervention.
Yeah. Then if you're teaching about like common values and a sense of self, you're already going to be addressing it anyway.
So true. So true.
You should be feeling like this. What's going on here? You know, like I think what I'm starting to notice more about if there's something that's pulling you towards isolation or something that's pulling you towards group, a common welfare, everybody together. What is what you're doing? People who you're around. What does it pull you towards? Is it things that make you isolated, or is it things that make you connected?
There needs to be a certain level of self-awareness to be able to pinpoint that when you recognise there's something that you're feeling doesn't add up.
Because there's that bit about how do they want their community to be?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they were saying about the workplace bullying thing. Going back to that, the study was saying the difference between someone that's really competitive or someone that's actively getting them to work together. There's a big difference. We have the highest rate of bullying that goes on
in the UK,
in Europe.
In Europe, maybe HR means something else in the US.
Human remains, because essentially that's what's
I know the title for this episode now.
Yeah,
human remains. That conjures up so many other conversations.
Yeah,
but I think the way you've explained it earlier, kind of adds up.
Yeah, because what's left? What's left? It's not people driven. It's not about providing a better thing. You get I'm sure I've seen something somewhere that said about like even the CIA has changed the way they interrogate from being completely violent to actually doing positive affirmations to kind of get information through, and it works better than that one. I'm like, I think it's time,
in the setting.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, it's time's over. Like, just to pull each other apart. What for? Why isn't it people working together?
Yeah. I'm still sitting with the conversation that we had at the beginning, because I've been into my boys' school.
Yeah.
I think the pennies just dropped a little bit more about how men are. Go ahead.
I was going to say, but like, if they're going to do misogyny, they're going to do, I think, misandry.
Misandry. I've got it here. I've got it written. So if you, so for people that don't know, misandry is the hatred of males, which is rife on the internet.
Yeah.
And misogyny is the hatred of females. What we're seeing is any masculine trait has now got the label of misogyny.
Yeah. This brings me to the thing, definitions matter.
They fucking do.
And what I've noticed is the definitions have been ripped up behind the scenes and completely changed. Like, I know language is an evolving thing, that's fine, but what I understood something to be and what I've grown up with it to be, to all of a sudden now be magically something else, is very different. You know what I mean?
Minor attraction is another new word that's crept into
to make it
literature. To make it safe.
It's not. It's but why we even call them beautiful? Why aren't we calling them child torturers, child rapists, child killers. That's what they are.
Yeah.
It's not. There's nothing else. Paedophile is like, no, child porn. No, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And there's no charge for watching it, by the way.
Sorry?
Child porn, that's not a criminal offence to watch it.
But to have the material is. Okay. I have worked with an organisation to stop child trafficking, and there was enough of an experience in that setting to know that it's so much bigger, so much bigger than anyone is blind to think. Going back to what we were saying about the misogyny thing, which I hope ties in.
Yeah.
So from a therapeutic perspective, when we talk about our feelings and emotions, there is a paradoxical thing that happens. We kind of either make friends or come to terms with the things and the feelings and our culture and religion and all that, everything. Yeah. When we come to terms with it, there is a paradoxical bit, we change. Yeah. Hence why the paradox of change. It's that glue that I see day in, day out. Yeah. If we can't evolve into better conversation, more acceptance, openness. If someone wants to say, I've got these horrible thoughts and feelings, it would be better to have those conversations years up front where someone could start making better informed decisions so their personality and their character has a chance to change. Yeah. Got my soapbox then, didn't I? But
it needs to. It needs to happen,
but I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, so am I. I think it's why have all these new wave of things pushing people into isolation?
Boxes and isolation.
But they're not making it about this is how to be working together and collaboratively. Let's be part of something. And that's what I'm starting to notice, the difference between people who are genuinely affected by something and people who are just playing at it.
Professional playing at it.
Yeah, professional playing at it. They make money out of it. They're essentially grifting. And I watched this in the 90s. I watched this in the thing where it was a big, like the whole tide was turning with like gay acceptance was starting to happen. Yeah. Slowly, but it was starting to happen. There was like a wave of it towards the end of the 90s where it started, like the queer as folk stuff started to happen in the UK. And I know that all of a sudden there was lots of these incidences that I witnessed where these like rich guys were now all of a sudden having these trophy guys who didn't identify as straight. Sorry, gay. Didn't identify as gay at all. But they were there in a money situation. And I'm like, what is this? And it's just
how have you earned the right?
Opportunists. Do you know what I mean? Like, make it there for the money or whatever. But like, you haven't been through it's almost like being a tourist. You haven't been through the struggle. You haven't been through the internal hate and all the rest of it. You're just coasting there.
That was one of my questions I was going to ask you. Yeah. What kind of mental health challenges have you faced and how have you resolved it? I think this is important. As a therapist, I think we've got to show that we're human.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I've got depression, so it's like I've dealt with that. But and understanding what triggers depressive episodes for me, and understanding where the pressure comes from, and I think a lot of the situations that I've come into is because I've been unbalanced in terms of like with one area of my life has been out of whack and it's knocked everything else out. And when I'm at my best is when there's a level of balance between everything. Like there's work, exercise, food, like work, home and career. Like there's like, I don't know, like I can just see it differently in my head when everything's sort of taking over, but when one starts to take over and it affects the others and they start to disappear, that's when my mental health goes all over the place.
You've helped me.
Yeah.
I'm at that point where I'm recognizing that I've got a balance and I'm struggling to ascertain which. I think I've got one area that I'm neglecting. I know I'm neglecting. As I'm saying it, I'm connecting the dots. Yeah. That was lovely because I think every 10 years I have a bit of an episode. And I had my last episode was 2 years ago, my 50th birthday, in full transparency. Yeah. But you need to do the work to recognise the pattern.
Yeah.
And that's not something you can teach overnight, is it?
No. It's almost that bit of what are you willing to... The stuff that you're willing to put ahead of your looking after yourself is the stuff that you're willing to lose first.
Say that again.
The stuff that you're willing to put ahead of you being balanced is the stuff that you're willing to lose first.
Yes.
So if you put your job ahead of looking after yourself and maintaining your health and all the rest of it,
it's the job.
It's the job that's going to go first.
That's the second thing. It's a good job we're recording this. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
That's why I've noticed that I have to mind, body, soul stuff, like being able to read through you get a thought for the day kind of thing. So I would spend a bit like less than 5 minutes just looking at something like that just to remind me and center myself. I have, the exercise that I do, I've marked off 4 times a week that I go and do exercise, but I've made sure that I don't. The only reason for not doing it is if I'm on location, if I've gone and done something else.
Or you're ill.
Or I'm ill.
Yeah.
But I have to be really ill to not go.
Mm.
So because that helps balance the rest of my body out. And that keeps me going, and making sure there's enough food in the house just to keep me going around that sort of thing. And then I've got the work planned out and how much time I'm going to spend in university, and making sure that I've given myself enough time to do it. Rather than I've got this much, I've got to allocate myself an hour.
Don't rush.
Allocate myself an hour, and that's going to get 3 essays done. No, it's not. It's going to take me longer than that.
No, that would have opened the notebook by then.
But also understand what helps me, because I would get stuck on assignments, and my hack was I needed to talk through the assignment first, and then it clicked in my head and I could do it.
Talk to someone that's in the same, like one of your peers or
anybody. I just need to talk through what the assignment involves, and then it just clicks in my head, and then I can go and do it. Because what I noticed was I would put it off until a certain point hits, and then I'd have to, like a sudden burst, but I have no time left. And I'm like, what is that key part that happens from total resistance to doing it? And it was that. Because I get so stressed out, I end up talking to somebody, and that's how I figured out that bit out.
That's a gem.
Everybody's got that bit.
It's got a it's got a... Mine was mind maps and going to cafes. The busiest, and then I would either talk to... I'm really good at talking to strangers. I would talk to strangers and they say, oh, you've been here all day. And I say, yeah, I've got this assignment and it's asking me that. And as I'm talking, that I'm going, well, I know how to do that. And but beforehand, it was just the mist in front of my eyes.
Yep. And music. If I'm having to do a load of notes or like a note, but I would put on an album that I've heard a million times over. It has to be an old album that I know the words to. I put it on and I can get through it in half the time than if I'm sitting in silence. Something in my brain clicks onto it and tracks along it. It almost sets the pace.
Gives you an opportunity to go kind of freestyle because a part of your mind is occupied.
Yeah.
That's a bit ADHD.
I know, right? It does.
I'm noticing some common threads here. I might have to go and do the test. Blimey. I love it that you spoke about misogyny and misandry and that balance, and it's timely because I think we do need to start talking about, let's stop labelling, persecuting, creating a divide between people. We do need to start working together. We do not need to. We need to go back to some of these community family values. Yeah. You're kind of seeing that sort of happening across the water at the moment. Whether you like it or not, there's some core.
It is.
Yeah.
People who want to be together and want to make something of that place. Do you know what I mean? Like wherever you're living, if people are actively being part, like if you go in, the pharmacist near me is lovely. And sometimes he might not open on time. He might be a little bit casual with his hours, but he's always polite. He always knows what my order is. Always fixes stuff out. So I'm fine with that. Do you know what I mean? Like having that
sounds like a bit of a social.
Yeah, but like, do you know what I mean? Like I'm more for like having that understanding, but also people who want to live and be in that area and make the most of it and be together. Like I did. I was a poll clerk for one of the elections, and I was down near St Mary's, and what was amazing about being sat in that, it was a heavily Asian community, and they were coming in, everybody was friendly, chatty. It was that community feel to it. People looking after each other. They didn't necessarily know each other that well, but there was a feeling of, I want you to be okay. Yeah. Even though I was a visitor in that community, just checking off the slips and whatever, they made me feel welcome.
You're describing something that we touched on earlier, which is, when I said, I'll talk to anyone.
Yeah.
But you need to learn that craft.
Yeah.
I don't think young people are today equipped enough to go and talk to a stranger.
Yeah.
But
it's
within reason, it's a prerequisite of a healthier dialogue and a boost of confidence.
But I've that made me think about I've seen guys in a cruising area. So this area is designed for an intimate encounter, on their phone, on an app, trying to chat to the other person. Bear in mind, they are this far away. I'm call me old school, but I'm like, come on, just go and,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Say hello,
because it's not like you're not taking that much of a risk because you're already in a designated area where it's,
people deemed as safe, and that's it.
People are up for that sort of thing. So you've already checked a lot of things off. The level of, what if they would? But you're in an environment. You got to. They couldn't make it. They couldn't make it any easier.
But then, with a bit of empathy as our guiding light, they are clearly struggling and can't do it.
No, exactly.
This is real. They can't do it.
Real.
What would you say a bit of a takeaway advice would be for people that are listening to what we've discussed today?
Figure out where you fit and how you can make a difference. Because with the gay community especially, we've had a whole generation of guys that have wiped out from HIV and AIDS. There's a whole gap there that happened. And there's still people being diagnosed today. So it's rather than tell people what they can't do, I think it's more about showing people what you can do and role modeling something positive.
Rich, thank you so much. I've enjoyed today.
Yeah, I have as well. Thank you so much.
Should we do it again?
Yeah, happily.
If you felt that this episode has helped you, good. That's exactly the reason, the purpose we're doing this. Feel free to like and subscribe. And in the description, you'll also see a number of links to websites and resources that we hope will help. Until next time, let's keep talking, shall we?